attempt two for today. When the first live doesn't work, we try again. So I'm gonna go ahead and invite Stephanie here today, and let's see her jump on. Well, welcome to today live. My name is Ronica Brown. If you're catching my video for the first time, I help my clients to reduce their taxes significantly by implementing tax planning strategies. So this is completely different than filing tax return. So today, I see Stephanie's watching. We're going to be talking about becoming unstuck. I know that at some point in your life, you may feel unstuck, or in business, and so you should be seeing it. So whether it's business or personal, sometimes you may feel unstuck. And I was speaking to Stephanie. Awesome.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad that I'm
Good.
able to figure out how this adding
Yes.
people work on
Right, right,
Facebook.
right. It's okay. We got it the second time.
Yes, yes. So I was actually just saying that, I'm not going to be talking about taxes today. I'm going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about, getting unstuck. And,
Hmm.
a lot of times, whether it's business or personal life, people may get stuck in different areas. And
Right.
this is what you actually help them with: get unstuck so that they can achieve, their business goals as well as their personal goals. So thank you for joining me today. I'm
Sure.
going to let you introduce yourself, and then we can go ahead and
Okay.
get started.
Okay, perfect. I'm happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me. You see me okay?
Yes, I'm seeing you.
Yes? Okay, perfect. So,
I'm glad we're
like,
not upside down.
right, progress. So my name is Stephanie Nichols. Just like Ronica said, I am the owner of Mindful Therapy Works. It is a private practice dedicated to treating difficulties with mental health. And I see clients, adults, college students, some teenagers as well, that may be struggling with anxiety, depression, adjustment issues, stress management, and like you said earlier, just working a lot of that mindset, being stuck in businesses and in life. I help them come up with goals. We work on their goals, and I pretty much set them free back into their environment. So I'm a small business owner, woman, wife, and that's just a little bit about me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much. Um, I think one of the things, why I'm happy to be in business is because you meet people that are in business that's doing so many different things, and I think that
Right.
is awesome. And when we talked, one of the words that came up that you mentioned is cognitive distortion, and you mentioned that this is I guess one of the things that people can be suffering from a mindset standpoint. So tell me a little about cognitive distortions.
Sure. Cognitive distortions. If you break up the word cognition, we think about the brain, right? And we look at distortions. Something is wonky, something is twisted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, cognitive distortions are pretty much irrational thoughts that we've adopted over time that we believe are true when they're really not. They're sneaky. They creep up at the last minute. They interrupt, our flows and our thinking processes, and they can affect our emotions, and they can affect what we do, and if we're able to progress forward, if we actually believe the distortions that come up for us.
So since I didn't know much about this, I went to Google. And some
Okay.
of the things that Google told me was,
Hmm.
overgeneralization, all or nothing thinking, jumping to
Hmm.
conclusions, I guess disqualifying the positive. And
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like thinking, okay, hold on. Do I need to fill out a profile for myself to see if I have any of these? I'm thinking about people in my life that I may, oh, you just jumped to conclusion too much.
Right, 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 right.
So it
Yeah.
seems like these things are things that probably sometimes, even myself may have considered like, normal. That's just someone's personality. So I guess,
Hmm.
so tell me how this affects, us mentally from a mindset standpoint.
Right. So it's totally normal. We all experience it. Nothing is wrong with you or any other family member you think have it. It's also it's also known as thinking as well. Cognitive distortions. A lot of my colleagues refer to it as thinking. And so really, the to answer your question is when we have them, but because we believe they're true, we never move forward, right? We jump to conclusions and, I'll go into the examples and things like that, but we never move past the distortion. It's one thing to think about, something that comes to our mind, but it's another thing to say, oh, I can't act because this is accurate, or I can't do that because of this thought that came up for me. You know what I mean? So it all happens to all of us. It's just a matter of the frequency, the duration, and how often it prevents you from doing what you need to do.
Right. So I guess it's, if it's actually is one of the things that are keeping you stuck more so than, if you actually have some kind of irrational thinking or somehow.
Right.
And you mentioned that you had like 5 of those that, shows up quite a lot. Even, when you think about, business owners. So why don't you go ahead and share, I guess, those top 5, this is 5, sorry. Top 5.
On a good day, this is 5. On a good day.
Why don't you go ahead and share your top 5 that you have seen, in your practice as a therapist, and what are some of, the examples and some of the ways to deal with them?
Yes. So the first one we can cover is the all or nothing thinking, which is also known as black and white thinking. So the all or nothing thinking is when you think in extremes, one opposite end of the other, right? So a good example would be, let's look at an entrepreneur who's examining their leadership skills, right? So you have one entrepreneur that is like, I'm the best supervisor, I'm the best boss, no one's ever gonna leave me, I got this under control, everything's gonna work out, right? Like, I'm the best supervisor ever. And so that's one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is, I can't manage anybody. Who am I going to lead? Am I even going to get employees into this building to work for me? Can I keep them? Do you see what I'm saying? So that is totally different ends of the spectrum that is considered a cognitive distortion, right? So with those examples, you think about, well, what's the problem with, the opposite ends of the spectrum? The problem is you don't leave any room for improvement, for change. As entrepreneurs, we need to live in that gray, black and white thinking, we should live in that gray area. And so the person who said they're the best supervisor ever, no one's ever going to leave me, they don't prepare for that person who has actually left. Or, they don't prepare for someone who gave them a negative review of some sort on their leadership skills, right? And so the person at the other end just kind of get stuck there too. They just like, okay, I'm a lousy supervisor. They don't think about like trainings they can do. They don't think about anything they can do to retain employees. And so because they live on the opposite end of that spectrum, in that all or nothing thinking, that black and white thinking, you get stuck in any change that's supposed to occur personally or with your business.
I'm just having like all this reaction to the question. And Donna, I see your comment. You said your husband, and I'm having like, kind of like, mine too. It sounds like an all or nothing behavior, but I get it. So what's some of the ways, someone that at either end of these two spectrum, I guess, can at least starting to get out of it?
Right. And I'll have the ways to combat the distortions at the end of talking about all 5 of them. Okay, no so I'll jump back to that once we get through all the different ones. Is that okay?
Go on, girl. Go on.
You want the resolutions right now. And so
I want to send a text.
Right. So The second one we're going to examine is overgeneralization with entrepreneurs. Okay, when we overgeneralize something, it basically means an event happened, something occurred that usually we prescribe as negative, and we hold on to that experience and apply it to something immediately that's going to happen, or something future, something that will happen in the future. So a good example may be an entrepreneur who has their first maybe like speaking engagement or something like that. And they just feel like they did not do the best job. They were messing up their words. PowerPoint didn't work. They felt like the audience wasn't engaged. They just felt like they bombed it. You know, they pretty much assigned to that first speaking engagement as if like, I just bombed that, you know? And so with overgeneralization, so now there's one coming up again and they're like, I'm going to bomb this. I'm going to bomb this. Or there's one in the future and they're like, no, I'm not even going to do that again, because it's going to happen just the same way it did at my first one. So we overgeneralize as entrepreneurs if we get stuck in that cognitive distortion. And so we see the problem with that. You may never try again. You know, you may never give yourself a chance to rewrite that story, you know, give yourself a second chance and let's start anew. And so if you get stuck in that distortion, you will apply it to all aspects of your business, or maybe it's in how you interact with people. You will overgeneralize just because you did something one time, that it's going to be the same way today, right now, or in the future.
Got it. So that's overgeneralization. And which other did you have?
So the third one is jumping to conclusions. We've all heard jumping to conclusions. That's when you kind of think you figured out a situation with no evidence. Okay, no evidence whatsoever. I call this a double whammy because there's two distortions that fall under it, which is mind reading and fortune telling, right? And so mind reading falls under fortune telling. I mean, jumping to conclusions when you think you know what the other person is thinking. So, you know, as an entrepreneur, let's say you wanted to network with this person for so long, you met up with them, you set up a coffee date with them, and you're talking to them, they're talking to you, and the thought comes up automatically in your head, they don't want to buy my product. They don't want to work with me. They're not really interested. You know what I mean? Like, but we have no idea what's going on in that person's head. That is a mind reading distortion. And then the other one after mind reading is the fortune telling, where we think we know what's going to happen in the future and we have no evidence. So let's say we're filling out a business loan, you know, filled it out, did everything, crossed the T's, dot the I's, on the way to drop it off. Before you hit send, you already said, I'm not going to get approved for this loan. Like you already said, you know, you've already, you know, talked the fortune up, like, you know what the future holds for you. So
Mindset
that's
block.
right, mindset block. So we see how jumping to conclusions can be problematic, because I feel like they are almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that can occur. You know, if you're at that lunch and you start believing those thoughts, you may not behave in your best way. You know, you may start trailing off with your words, or you're not pushing your product as hard. You're just become maybe a little disengaged because you believe that distortion that's going on through your head at that time of the lunch. So,
You know, I think, you know, not so much in business, but I think on the personal side of my life, it looks like I fit in the jump to conclusion.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of times I feel like I normally read up the situation and know what's going on before. So I'm running with all my facts.
Right. That gets us in trouble sometimes.
So-called facts. You got me in trouble on Saturday.
So it did. Okay. All right.
You got me in trouble on Saturday.
That's the proof right there, right? It gets us in trouble sometimes.
So I'm kind of like unrolling from that trouble right now.
Okay. All right. You're backtracking some.
Exactly.
Okay. Perfect. And so, go ahead. The fourth one was disqualifying the positive. It sounds just like what you hear. Basically, just a tendency to move towards the negative instead of the positive. An example could be we can go back to speaking engagement again. You thought you did a great job. Well, you didn't think you did a great job, but everything was flawless. You were on time. Everything worked out. You had good evaluations and feedback. But for some reason, you got stuck on the number of attendees. Like you thought it was going to be more people in attendance. Yeah. And you don't understand why more people didn't show up or why didn't so-and-so show up, right? So we disqualify all that good that I just mentioned, and we just kind of get stuck in the negative. We disqualify all the positive, right? And so with entrepreneurship, building businesses, we need those small wins. We need the small wins, wherever we can take them. And, just disqualifying all the good just kind of puts us in down in the funk. And, as entrepreneurs, we always have something to do. So when you don't take a moment to kind of relish in the joy, somebody spoke about joy on your show the other day. If we don't take in some joy, we push it to the side, go to the next thing. Go to the next thing. And then you never feel like you're accomplishing anything because you disqualify all the positive. Nice. So that's a distortion we need to be mindful of as entrepreneurs, business owners as well.
Awesome. And so that was the fourth one. And the fifth one, so that was disqualifying the positive. And what's the fifth one?
The fifth one is personalization. We've all heard, don't take that so personal. Why are you taking that so personal? And as a business owner, we need to be mindful of the personalization distortion, just because, personalization pretty much means you take blame for everything. You take blame if something went wrong, if someone's in a mood or in a funk, you put it on you, like you did something and you have to try to fix it. Right? Where you don't have any proof of that. Like some of us work with people, and people just have different temperaments, So personalization.
Oh, yes.
We have employees. So let's say an employee comes in, you guys usually chit-chat it up, but that morning the employee just says hello, goes to their office and does their work for the day, but you just kind of get stuck in, what did I do wrong? Why didn't they sit down and have a coffee? Why didn't they talk more? Like, what's going on? Do I need to help her? Or if you're talking to a client over the phone and they're usually peppy, but for some reason the voice is just different and, they're just not engaged, and you automatically put it on yourself. Like, did I do something wrong? Maybe I should not have called at 11. Maybe I should have called after lunchtime. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so the problem with the personalization is that we just kind of get stuck in like fixing things that it's not for us to fix. It's definitely not for us to fix. And then when we think that everything is wrong with us and we're the ones to blame, that lowers our confidence, and that lowers our ability to kind of push forward in our own lives and what we have going on for ourselves. So we can't personalize in our own businesses.
I see that happens a lot with new business owners, like they blame themselves for everything. And especially on the financial side, if, their books are not in order, their taxes are not in order, they didn't do certain things because they didn't know, it's just this big blame. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just get over it and move on?
Right.
The past is always the past. This is how to fix it, and let's just move on. And
True.
It's just this weight that they're carrying on their shoulders, saying that I should have done this, I should have known this. And I see that a lot in new business owners, as I said. And the 5 things that you mentioned, in my perspective, these are personal things that we carry in business. So the thought that came to mind, I don't remember where I saw this or who said that, it's like, people don't have business problem. People have personal problems, and the personal problem, I guess, manifests itself, in your business. And all 5 of these things, these kind of behavior or mindset problems that's connected to cognitive distortion are actually what shows up in our business. So since we all want to end the year on a good note,
right,
and start fixing all of these things. So I think that you're going to get into what are some of the things that we can do to start, combating these 5 types of personal distortion that we're having. Not personal, cognitive distortion.
Right. Yeah, and it's 3, simple steps. I say simple. It may not be simple for all, but there's just 3 brief steps. And I was going online, I was looking at some things as well, and I came across this great worksheet, and it pretty much said, put your thoughts on trial. And I was like, yes, put your thoughts on trial. Everything that comes to mind is not true, right? So always think about what is coming up for you in whatever situation. So step number one with putting your thoughts on trial is really identify what it is. Identify what it is. Take a moment and be like, is this a cognitive distortion? Like, where did that come from? What of the five that Stephanie talked about am I experiencing right now? You know, you always want to identify what comes up for you in your mind at that time, right? So then once you've identified it, then you put it on trial pretty much, and you ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this? And that's what I tell my clients this all the time. Ask that thought, ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support this distortion? 9.5 times out of the 10, there's no evidence. Okay, there's no evidence. Go ahead.
What about those people that are crazy enough to think that they have the evidence? You know, what about in those, like, you make up the evidence,
right?
That don't.
Now you can't make it up. It's either it is true, hard fact evidence, or it's not an evidence. If you make it up, yes, if you make it up, it is still a distortion, right? Like, I really need the proof in the pudding here. You know what I mean? So for the 0.5, if it truly is, you feel like there is evidence for that. Let's say with the supervisor one, you did get bad feedback, right? You did get bad feedback about your leadership skills. So if I say, okay, do you have evidence for that? Okay, you have, you got a negative review. What can I do to change my leadership skills? Because that was something I already said that I was struggling with, right? And so you have to look at the evidence for what it is. If it's not there, it's not there. If it is there, what can I do to work this situation out for me? Right? And then that leads into the third, which is to reword and reframe that thought completely. Okay? So instead of sticking with I'm a lousy supervisor, no one's ever going to stay with me, you reframe that completely based on the evidence. And you might say, my leadership skills have room for improvement. That's it. You know, it's not like such a negative connotation that you're holding on to at this point. Because if there's room for improvement, we need some trainings, you know what I mean? We need how to figure out how to communicate a little better. And so those are the 3 steps I encourage people to explore when it comes to the distortions that come up. You know, identify them, put them on trial. Is there evidence? Is there not evidence? If there's not evidence, just let it go. Let it go. And if there is evidence, what can we do to work around this issue? And then number 3, reframe it completely. Reframe the distortion completely for something that is factual. So,
and you see that, so once they go ahead and you know, reword it and rephrase it, do they pretty much start, you know, making them feel better about the situation or themselves, and kind of like, I guess increase that, level of I guess good feeling.
Right. It should help you push forward. You know, it should help you push forward. Let's say you are at that that lunch networking event, and the thought comes up, you know, they don't really want to buy my product. They're not really interested in me, you know, and you do the first step. Okay, that's mind reading, right? You do the second step. Do I have evidence to support this? The person came, you know what I mean? The person came to the meeting. It was their busy schedule. They took time out. They're here. They're listening. They're engaged. So I have no evidence to support this, right? So, okay, this is just me thinking that. This is not factual. Let me stay engaged. Let me stay present and continue what I have to say. Let me continue pushing my product or explaining my vision or whatever the case may be. Switching it should help you push forward instead of going on the decline that may happen if you continue to believe that the distortion is true.
Oh, wonderful. And I see Donna have quite an interesting thought here. She said, the truth is not everyone or every situation is right for us. what's your thoughts around that?
Not every situation is right for us. What
Not,
exact, like what?
she said the truth is not everyone or every situation is right for us.
Right. And I mean, I think that's true and that's accurate, but you just have to examine the distortion as they come up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like they are not for you or with your product, it may or may not be true, but in the
Mm-hmm.
present moment, you may not know. So stay present, stay engaged. The purpose of the discussion is so that the distortions don't take over, you know?
Take over,
So
right,
yeah,
right.
don't let them take over. So stay engaged, say what you have to say, and when you leave that meeting, then you evaluate, okay, maybe, that person isn't for me, or maybe I don't want to work for that person. Like you can't, continue thinking, what the other person is thinking. You may just walk away from that. Like maybe I don't want to work with them for whatever reason. So every situation is personal, but never let the distortions take over what's happening.
Yes, and I think that in order to not let it take over, and when you're in
Mm-hmm.
business, I think that, well, for me, it's being in business that let me realize how mindset is so important.
Right, right.
So I think that this is actually more detrimental for people who are in business, because that's what you're getting up each and every day to do. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're feeling like you're stuck, you can't break
Right.
through. So whether it's these top five items, because also mindset can take different areas, and
Mm-hmm.
cognitive distortion. I have to look. You gave me a new
Mm-hmm.
word. Cognitive distortion has
Perfect.
like other, I guess, traits to it, right? That also can be the problem. So if it's not, these top five, then there may be other issues
Right.
that keeping you unstuck, as well. Is there anything else that you want to share about mindset in general, or about specifically about cognitive distortion?
Those were the main things, but like you said, there are a whole list of other ones that we could get into today, but the five are the main ones. You just got to be mindful of the other ones. And mindset is
Mm-hmm.
everything for a successful business, And so I want people to always question the thoughts that come into their heads, especially if they do feel like they're stuck, especially if they can't meet their goals, if they say they're going to do
Mm-hmm.
one thing, but then that doesn't happen. You have to start questioning, is it the business? Is it the people? Or is it things that I'm saying to myself? Or are they thoughts that I'm thinking that are automatically popping up that I'm accepting as true? And that's preventing me from moving forward. So mindset is 100% key to a successful business, and I think you can attest to that as well. Just don't neglect it. Don't neglect it at all. Just recognize if there's an issue and try to combat it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. That's a lot of, great information that you shared today. I definitely
Okay.
have a new word to use when, people are overly blaming themselves to the point
Yeah.
that they're not taking action, the over
Right.
personalization. And I think I
Hmm.
have, a step for, for the all or nothing thinking. So I'm going to queue
Yes.
up a message to send after this. So that one, gives me information personally
Okay.
to go ahead and relay on how to, stop doing that, or realizing that you're doing that. But anyways, I don't want
Right.
to get myself in any more trouble. So,
No.
but
No.
thank you so much for joining me today. And I linked if you guys wanted to hear more from Stephanie, I tagged her in this post, and if you have a link, you can also share as
Okay.
well.
I will drop
Um,
my website down below. And I also just relocated, so my office is open now for new clients if they feel like they can't get unstuck themselves and are having a
right.
difficult time. So my office is open now. I'm off 2900 Paces Ferry Road. I take insurance, self-pay. So if people feel like they need a little bit more, they could always contact me on my website as well.
Are you only work? Do you work with only people that owns businesses, or you work with people that
No,
in corporate as well?
I work in corporate. I do workshops, you know, one-on-one individual in the office. Outside of the office, I do workshops. I do small, large group presentations. So I'm open. I usually talk about work-life balance, like I said before, stress management, adjusting to major changes that are occurring in life. I've spoken to teachers. I've spoken to the solicitor's office, lawyers. So I'm open.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone that's watching live. If you didn't catch it live and you're watching the replay, send us a comment as well or like the video. Again, I am Ronica and I help my clients save anywhere from $5,000 to up to $200,000 is my new record in 2019 on their taxes using tax planning strategies. Yeah, today I talked to Stephanie Nichols and she shared ways on how to get unstuck in business and meet your goals. So if you want more information on that, you can contact her and she will post her information below. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.